welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to remake a video I made about a year ago talking about my honest opinion about Warwick University, particularly the law school of Warwick University. That original video did quite well for my channel, but I feel like the quality of it's a little bit lacking, and one of my professors actually saw it, so I feel like I need to step up my game a little bit. Hopefully this is it. I'm going to cover quite a few of the same points, so don't feel like you need to watch that other video. And let's get straight into it. So, I'm going to start with everyone's favorite, the academics. And I have a list of pros and cons, so let's get into it. The first major pro is that the professors at Warwick Law School are amazing. I think it was a big shock for me coming from a school into university, because like being a professor is an actual career that people really want. And I'm not saying anything bad about teachers, but I felt like a lot of my school teachers had some like pent up aggression and they didn't want to be there. Meanwhile, professors genuinely enjoy their subject and really enjoy what they're doing. And you can definitely feel that just in the everyday interactions. They just seem less bitter than school teachers. I'm not saying all school teachers hate their jobs or that being a school teacher isn't a good job. I'm just saying that the vibes are definitely different. Another pro is that there is a lot of variety within the modules, both in the topics and the teaching styles. I think this might be the reason why the professors do genuinely like their jobs, but it's because they do have a lot of autonomy over how the module is taught. Now, this can be both a positive and a negative. In third year, I picked a lot of corporate law subjects, which unfortunately meant that though the professors were really great, I really struggled with those subjects because they're not exactly what I'm good at. I'm better at criminal law and kind of more academic critique rather than the real life stuff, which is what corporate law modules are mostly about. And a lot of the professors were really into a lot more technical things that I struggle to understand. I think that experience really showed me how much autonomy they do have over the module, and I think generally that is a really good thing. If there is a certain teaching style that you prefer, I think Warwick is really good for that because you can pick your modules based off that. When I picked my modules, I just read the description online, but I know there's a modules fair you can go to where you probably will get a better understanding of the teaching style of the module, and you can pick something that's better suited for you. And generally, I think this is a great thing, and I really appreciate the variety that the university has. Despite this variety, there is also some continuity that helps keep you sane. There is a limited amount of assessment formats, so we did like normal essays, reflective writing, problem questions, and then I think I did a few presentations, but they were in like first and second year, so there wasn't too many presentations. At least I managed to avoid them. And this was really helpful for me because I'm someone who struggles with doing new assessment formats, so once I understand what is being asked of me, I can manage pretty well, but if it's brand new, I find it really difficult, and I'm sure a lot of people do as well. So having that limit was very helpful. I don't know if the university limits it explicitly, but it is what's happened. The professor that runs the modules, I think they have to discuss the assessments and they tend to stick with those formats. I personally really like this. I'm not entirely sure how it is in other universities. I assume for law specifically it's probably very similar. Onto our final pro, there is a lot of study space and a lot of variety in the types of study space on campus. The library has obviously the most study space out of anywhere, and it's tiered, so the lower floors are more chill, and then as you go higher up in the library, it gets more and more intense, I guess. The upper floors are entirely silent, and the lower floors you can eat and chat in. So as someone who likes complete silence when studying, I really liked that because it meant that people weren't talking in the silent study areas. There is also study areas in every single building that you may have lectures in, so you don't actually have to go anywhere, you can just kind of sit there, or if you're waiting for a lecture you can also work there. But that does vary. Some some buildings have way less study space or basically next to nothing. So the library is usually the best. Now onto the cons of the academic side of things. Number one is that it is very academically challenging. Warwick in general is a really good university, but especially people who go into law are quite academically minded, and I personally felt a bit out of place surrounded by so many clever people. It can be a bit of a shock moving from school to university, especially if you're going to a really good university. It can be quite humbling to be surrounded by so many smart people, and I know that a lot of people find this really, really challenging, especially if you based a lot of your self-worth around academics. The fact that everyone is suddenly really good or better than you is very, very I found this quite inspiring, how much people dedicated to university and to applying for jobs or networking, and I'm not somebody who's really intense like that, so I felt quite out of place and I felt like I was constantly behind. So that is definitely something to keep in mind, is that it will be quite difficult, even if it's not necessarily the academics themselves. It's just the general atmosphere of people trying really hard. Con number two is something that a lot of students have complained about, and it's that Warwick doesn't necessarily prepare you for the SQE. The SQE is being the solicitor qualification exam. While some of the core modules are also modules you have to do for the SQE, Warwick is a lot more critical rather than practical or doctrinal or about learning the law. A lot of the modules are focused on academic critique or sort of more philosophical and ethical side of things, whereas the SQE is about the information and the laws. I have heard that Durham prepares students a lot better for the SQE, whereas Warwick is better if you're getting into academia. Personally, I thought this was a pro for me because I struggle with the kind of doctrinal side of things. If I had to learn all the laws off by heart or anything like that, I think I would have been a lot more miserable. I really like writing critical academic essays. However, if you're really, really set on becoming a solicitor, I see how this can be a bit of a drawback, since you spent 3 years studying the subject but not quite in the correct way. It may feel like a bit of a waste of time. Another con, which I think is a con in every university, is that you have to choose your modules quite far in advance. Warwick is very inflexible about letting you move modules or change them. I believe you pick your modules around the end of the previous year, so around exam time, and I found that very, very stressful. Again, I understand that the university needs to make a lot of timetables and a lot of things like that. Speaking of timetables, in third year they messed up everyone's timetables, so we didn't have timetables for 2 weeks, which was shocking, and it does kind of show that there are some problems with organization, clearly. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, I don't like how in advance you have to pick your modules. Another con is the online library system. There is a lot of support with how to use the online library, so clearly they do think it's an issue, but I didn't find it super challenging finding things, but I found it quite challenging that the library website redirects you to a different page where you then have to log in to that specific hosting website, or what do you call it? The university has a bunch of logins to different libraries like JSTOR or Westlaw, and you find what you need through the Warwick Library website, you click on it, it opens a new tab, then it opens another tab, then you have to log in, then there's all sorts of you have to create accounts for all sorts of things, and I found that really, really challenging. I have ADHD, so having to have 50 tabs open just made me really overwhelmed, and I really struggled to do my reading because I would have to open each reading in different things, and each of the UIs would look different, and it would just confuse me. I understand there's not much the university can do about this because it is a licensing issue and they can't necessarily save everything onto one database, but this is something that I found quite difficult throughout my degree. Even though it may seem like quite a minor thing, it did really get under my skin, and I knew that I couldn't just start reading. I had to like open a bunch of things, verify a bunch of things. It just drove me insane. On to the last con. There is nothing in third term, and I mean nothing. I was shocked. I thought because you get accommodation for 3 terms, I thought we'd have 3 terms of learning. But no, you only have 2 terms. And third term is just like preparation for exams, which to me doesn't make sense. If you have exams in first term, you have them in first term. But if you have exams in second term, they're in third term, so you have a whole other term to prepare for them. I don't know, it really confused me. Most of the time, I ended up not spending any time on campus in third terms, which kind of made me a bit removed from the university, and everyone was really confused why I wasn't there, but I don't understand why they were there, to be honest. Because there's no social events either. I just found it a little bit confusing and a little bit misleading that you only have 6 months of actual in-person learning, and then there's this just like gap. It was just something I really wasn't expecting going into university, and yeah, it was a little bit disappointing. Right, onto the social life and the societies. A big pro of Warwick societies is that there's a lot of them. There's like a chocolate and cheese society, there's a bubble tea society, there's like anything you can think of is a society. There's a societies fair you can go to, and you can chat to the people in the societies and they'll try to recruit you, which I thought was really fun. And in addition, it is really, really easy to join them. They are all on the university website. I looked at all the societies before I even like went to Warwick, and it was really, really fun. I kind of bookmarked all the ones that I was interested in. And yeah, unfortunately you do have to have Instagram to like get all the events, because they usually just post them on their Instagram. It's not on a university website or anything, which I did find a little bit confusing because I don't really use Instagram, so I found it a bit difficult to be involved. But that's kind of my own fault, you know. So onto the cons of the social life. The sports societies in particular are very expensive. I think to join a sports society you have to pay like £100 just to be able to join like any of them. It might just be like a one-off payment and then you can join as many sports societies as you like, but it's still quite expensive, especially since you then have to pay for the classes separately, and it really adds up. Most societies have a membership fee, but you can usually attend some events without being a member, and the fee is usually like £3 to £2. It's nothing crazy, but it is something, especially the sports, but the sports fees do add up. Another con of the social life is that, personally, I found the nightlife kind of dead. There are like 3 types of going out in Warwick. There's bar crawls, clubbing, and circling. But yeah, clubbing around this area is pretty dangerous and kind of bad, but I'm not a big club person, but from what I've heard, the clubs around Coventry and Leamington are kind of dangerous and kind of not the best. The circling can be fun if you're very, very drunk, and it is a Warwick tradition, I guess. You drink this drink called Purple, and I think it's cider, beer, and Ribena, and it doesn't taste too bad. It's pretty fun, I guess, but I haven't been out much because it just wasn't really my thing. And you also have to dress up every single time, which gets kind of expensive, and just, I don't know, I just don't like dressing up that much. And I mean like in a costume, not like dressing up nice, like you have to wear the theme for that week, which, I don't know. The pub crawls, I think, are pretty fun. The British classic. There are definitely fun nights out you can have. I wouldn't worry about that, especially if you're new to like going out. You'll definitely find it fun to some extent. Okay, finally the final con. That's not necessarily a con, I just thought it's something I should mention, and it's the fact that because it's a good university, there are a lot of rich people, so there is this kind of pressure to dress nice, And if you think you'll escape this because you're a guy, I spoke to one of my classmates and he was like, yeah, I have a Pinterest board for my university outfits, and there are a few like guys in my class who would wear suits to class. So yeah, you're not escaping. It is a pretty universal Warwick pressure, and I noticed that I started dressing differently as well. Again, it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just another thing to worry about that you shouldn't really be worrying about. Obviously, you can wear whatever you want. Lastly, I wanted to talk a bit about accommodation. Now, I lived in Sherborne in my first year, which I really liked, but it was a bit of a walk to Central Campus, and it was a little bit oh my god, my voice is dying. It was a bit of a walk to Central Campus, and it was a little bit expensive, but the rooms themselves were quite nice, but small. Warwick has a reputation for being good at choosing good flatmates, and I really liked my flatmates, so I guess that checks out. I recommend you watch some accommodation videos and pick the best one for you. I think that when you pick an accommodation on the website, it actually gives you like a quiz to do and like helps you out. Off-campus accommodation was horrible. I mean, it's not the university's fault, but I lived in like a house share with a bunch of other people, and my room was small and moldy, and like I think I paid more money the second year because I had to pay for the bus to university, and that was very expensive. So I kind of wish I lived on campus the whole time, but I know a lot of people disagree and they really enjoyed living with a bunch of other people. But yeah, for me the commute was just not worth it. I feel like having a 1 hour commute to university while you're living in student accommodation doesn't quite make sense. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend living in Leamington. I know everyone does it. If you want to do it, you can, but I found it quite brutal to get up in the morning in the British winter and go outside onto a really wet bus. It wasn't for me. Well, that's pretty much everything I had to say. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was slightly better than my previous, and bye-bye.